Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the monthly GPU update, and I have delayed it a little bit this month because I knew the Computex was up and AMD would announce their 9070 GRE, and it didn't land as well as it should because it was given out that it would be $530, so it would probably end in like 4,500 Danish kroners, and that it's way too expensive for price to performance. You can see if we want about the same price to performance as the 9070 or 9070 XT, we need to be around 3,500 Danish kroner just to reach the same price to performance. And I think we could launch it maybe 3,800 Danish kroner. It would be a fair price, but it would be significantly worse, but you would still have to pay 1,000 kroner extra for the XT. And I think the reason why the 9070 has become so cheap now is because it's running out of stock and they want to get rid of it. And I think the 9070 GRE is taking over this spot. They're not producing them anymore, so it's been out of production for a while now, since early this year. And it's still not sold out. It just shows how it's not bad. It's a really good card. It's not a bad card. I need to say that. But price to performance has just been worse most of the time versus the 9070 XT. So if we look at the 5090, let's find 5090 here. Maybe it's easier to just go like this, 5090, and sort by lowest price. And you'll be able to see that there are a great deal in this. But if we just take the first 6 of them, you'll see all of them are back order. And this is also back order. This is also back order. Also back order. And back order means that distributors doesn't even have them in stock and doesn't know when they get them. If the distributor had a date, they would also have a date here. Also back order. And the Asus TUF version is the first one where someone has it in stock, and it's Elgigan. And if we go in and look, they only have one single piece in stock. And this could just be an error, a stock error. Then we have the Eno 3D here at Geek, but this is the second cheapest one for almost 36,000 Danish kroner. And I predicted it would be 30,000 at the end of summer, and we're already at 36,000 for the first available. And it's not really available. They expect it to come in stock tomorrow. And they don't say how many they have, so you have to be fast if you want it. I think it's crazy. Komplett also have this, I don't know what it is. This is back order for Komplett, I think. And your order will most likely be cancelled for all their graphics cards has 2 to 6 days. And if they have something in stock, it's 1 to 2 days or 1 to 3 days, depending if it's another stock, it's not their own stock. So there are no 5090s left, and I would advise to be very careful when you buy new 5090s and 4090s for that matter, because there are a lot of scams at the moment. They rip out the RAM or the core. Sometimes they even solder in a dummy core, and then when you come home, it won't turn on, and then they have ripped everything off. So, or maybe they sell it with a dead core. So if you see the card, you have to see it work in a PC, and you have to take it out yourself, because so they don't swap it. There's also been cases where they have tested it in a computer and somehow the seller has swapped it out. They come home, it doesn't work. The seller says it's not on my end because it worked when we saw it. And then they send it to some shop, and then there's no core, no RAM in it anyway. So, and the seller doesn't even live where they showed it. So I just think it's crazy. Crazy scams. And there's a lot of money in these scams. You can easily earn 25,000 Danish kroner just from scamming one person, right? So be really careful if you buy these cards. So some prices have gone up. Most have gone down a little bit or stayed the same. The 30, 60, 12 gigabytes is starting to show up again, but it's showing up at 3,300 kroners. And to be attractive price to performance, it should be down in 1,800 kroner, around the same as the B570. Because it's much, much worse, and it should at least be cheaper than the B580. It doesn't come with all the DLSS stuff that the 40 and 50 series come with, so you're still limited in that regard. But for 1,800 kroner, it would be a really, really good entry-level card for low graphic settings with esports games and even some AAA games should still be able to run on a 3060, but not very well. You will maybe have 40, 50 FPS, but in single-player games, it might not matter as much. If we look at best price to performance, the 3050 is still not in stock, so I will just remove this soon. And the 5060 Ti is the cheapest one right now. So if you want an 8 gigabyte card and can't afford anything with 16 gigabyte, I would recommend this right now. Remember, next week, or maybe when we come to the weekend or after the weekend, these prices might not be relevant anymore, and you have to look up the prices yourself. So if it's more expensive than this or less expensive than this, the recommendation would change. If this goes up in price, it was over 3,000 or almost 3,000 not long ago, then I would recommend the 5060 8 gigabyte. The problem with the 5060 8 gigabyte is it only has 8 PCIe lanes. You know, the print that goes into the motherboard, it's half size versus the 9060, and that can affect the performance, and the 9060 XT is a little bit better. But at these prices, I wouldn't recommend it, but around the same price, I would recommend the 9060 XT. So I think this price will adjust during this month, maybe start of next, and it should come back down around the 2,400 Danish kroner. At least that is where it's attractive. It's not a bad price. It's just this price is much better. It's below 30 kroner per FPS. So in the mid-tier section, I think the 9070 is back on the table. It's a little bit better price to performance than the 9070 XT. And then I can recommend it. It's a really good card. It's 1,000 Danish kroner more cheap. And it's not a bad card. It's better than my 6950 XT. It's much better than that. It has native FSR4, so you don't have to use OptiScaler or stuff like that to inject that. And so very, very good card. Very tempting to sell my own and buy this. But the 5070 has also gone down in price, so it's same price to performance, not same price as the 9070. And you could argue that DLSS is worth the premium price, not a premium price, but the premium price to performance versus the 9070. And you can also argue that the 16 gigabyte of RAM is worth more than DLSS. I think personally that if you want to keep the card for a very long time, I think 9070 is the best option because you get more VRAM. And I think in a few years, 3-4 years, I don't think the 12 gigabytes will be enough. You would have to lower it to medium, low settings, and because all the new consoles will come out and they will raise the bar for how high textures can become. And I don't think 12 gigabytes will be enough. I think the new consoles will come with 18 to 24 gigabytes or something like that. And that will be the new bar for the medium graphics. And so this will be too little to run it on ultra and maybe also high. So you would go down to medium or low in 3 to 4 years. But if you know you are going to swap cards anyway in 3 to 4 years. And by maybe, if NVIDIA still makes graphics card at that time, the 7070 Ti or something at that point, then this is a great buy. But if you want to keep it longer, I think this is the best buy. It's also a little bit better price to performance. You get better performance, a lot better performance actually. So I would just recommend finding that extra 1,000 kroner, buy the better card. It would last longer, but it doesn't matter too much between these. I think I prefer 9070 over 5070, and I prefer the 9070 XT over the 9070. The 9070 GRE, it was up shortly for 4,700 Danish kroner, and at this price it was almost as expensive as the 9070 XT, and especially not worth it. It should be way cheaper than the 9070. It should be maximum 4,000 and preferably 3,800. 3,800 it would have. Still not as good price to performance. It's probably all the way down to 4,500 kroner to have the same price to performance. So 3,600 Danish kroner would be a perfect price for this card. And I wouldn't recommend it if it's not below 4,000. So, but it was only up briefly yesterday on ProShop. I think they took it down because people started ordering and they don't have a date for when it arrives yet. It's just been announced, right? But it should be coming out shortly. I wouldn't recommend any of these cards in the bottom at all because they are too high price performance or too bad performance. I would rather, instead of buying the 5050, I would rather you buy the B580 or B570 because they have a little bit worse overall FPS, but they have better average FPS, so you don't get so many spikes when you play, and the experience is just better with these cards than with the 5050. So, but this is the only time I would recommend these, at these prices at least. I don't think 2,000 is bad for a 5080, but I think it's a little bit sketchy at the moment because they didn't release the Celestial, which was expected, and they used all the SKUs for their data cards, the data center cards instead. The Pro B70, and you can't really count on Intel with this because the Battlemage was also cancelled like 3 or 4 times, and Moore's Law Stats said 100,000 times it would never get to market, and they got it to market anyway, and they've not been selling a lot, but they've been gaining market share a few percent. It's not a lot, but it's there. I think if they made a really good 12 and 16 gigabyte card, and it would be around the same performance at a 4070, and it would be a little bit cheaper than AMD and NVIDIA, I think they would sell really good, and I think they have gone good on their drivers. But can we expect them to update their drivers when they don't make new graphics card? We have the problem with Crimson Desert, so they don't have enough market share for the studios to actually care about it, only when the shit hit the fan afterwards. So yeah, I don't know if I can recommend the Intel cards, unfortunately. I would really, really like to recommend them, but I would stay clear of them until we hear more about the Celestial. It would be very bad to buy a graphics card now and next year they stop driver support. So, and the plan is to actually make SoC with NVIDIA, where they have an Intel Panther Lake, I think, and an NVIDIA GPU in it. So, which is somewhere between 5060 and 5070. So, if they can't beat this significantly, I don't think they will release anything. But I think it would be exciting to have a 12 gigabyte that could compete with the 5070 in price to performance. And a higher 16 gigabyte, maybe even a 24, or maybe a 16 and 24 gigabyte card. It would be very nice, but it's just wishful thinking, I think. So, yeah. So recommendations are, entry level is 5060 Ti. If you don't have as much money, I would go with a 9070, and it's a really fine card. You won't regret buying this. And if you have the extra money, just go for it and buy the XG model, because it is better and it will last for a longer time than the others. But they have the same amount of VRAM. You will just run a little better FPS, I think. I would like to recommend the 9060 XT 8 gigabyte over the 5060, because it's a little bit of better price to performance normally, but it has to be way cheaper than this. 2,200 Danish kroner, maybe. But as long as it holds this price, it's a clear winner in the entry level, I think. So that's it for now. See you guys around, and spend your money wisely.